Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
In today's Farm Basics, we'll talk about the on-farm comparisons farmers are doing each year in their fields. Well, there are many reasons that farmers try new products. They want to see if they can get more yield or do a better job on a certain weed or just any number of things that farmers could be trying out. But the big thing is when farmers are trying new things, they have to keep in mind they have to make money out in those fields, and so they don't want to take a big chance. So in many cases, farmers are doing strip trials or split field type comparisons on their farm. We're going to talk about how they're measuring those and what they hope to learn.
Well, measuring is the whole key here, because in a lot of cases we can't gain 25 or 50 bushels with some new practice that we're going to throw out. I always tell farmers now, it's not like your dad or your grandpa had where, boy, they were the first one to use commercial fertilizer and wow, they said I gained 25 bushels, 30, 40 bushels. It was awesome. They were the first ones to use commercial pesticides and wow, they had fantastic weed control and gained 20 or 30 or 40 bushels. We don't have any of those great big wow events anymore in agriculture. We have a lot of little things. We have a lot of things that can gain 2 bushels or 5 bushels, but the point is they can still return a great return, because if you invest $2 and you gain $10 back, that's something I absolutely want to do. But if you're only going to gain $10, how are you ever going to notice that in the fall? If you're already getting 200 bushel corn and it's a 2 bushel gain or even a 5 bushel gain, it can easily get lost. It's such a small percentage gain that it's not noticeable out there. So that's where yield monitors, yeah, they're nice for seeing the big things, but when it comes to those little things, those little 5 bushel gainers, yield monitors don't show that very well.
And neither will you see that visually out in the field. A lot of farmers are walking their fields every week during the summer, looking for where these differences may be, especially where they're trying to compare 2 different practices or products out there. And you just can't see a 2 bushel difference or a 5 bushel difference visually. And so we need to do some sort of measurement at harvest time. What a lot of farmers will do is utilize a weigh wagon, where they bring out a little wagon that has a scale on it and they can weigh one pass versus the next pass. Or they'll weigh one part of the field and haul that to town and weigh it at a grain elevator and then weigh the other part of the field to compare between 2 treatments.
What we do a lot of times is we will actually reset our yield monitor every round when we're going through making these comparisons, or every half round when we're going through making these comparisons. So in other words, we reset starting at 0 and it adds up the total pounds for that half round or that full round. And the reason why we do that is, yeah, we might not see a color change when we look at our yield map overall, but if we can see, oh boy, every single time I went through this particular treatment, it weighed X number of pounds more, then I know I had yield gain. And then all you do is take that yield gain divided by what you invested and figure, oh, okay, well, here's my return on investment. And I'm not saying that all these practices work. That's the reason why we want to try this stuff out on a small scale, because sometimes they fail. So we want to catch that on a small basis before we've invested tens of thousands of dollars. But again, the farmer has to be really diligent and really pay attention to those small numbers.
Well, a number of things that farmers might try out is different hybrids or different varieties of seed that they're planting. Farmers are always curious, am I planting the right seed? Does it have the most yield potential for my soils? But the challenge with those hybrid type comparisons is it really makes a difference what kind of year you get. For example, last year we were really dry. This year we were pretty wet early and much cooler. And comparing one year to the next, the hybrids that were the best ones in 2012 aren't necessarily turning out to be the best hybrids in 2013. So that gets to be a little bit of a challenge. Some things that are a little more consistent though, for example, would be weed control products. Maybe you had problems controlling a certain weed in 2012, and so a farmer would try a different product in 2013 to see if he's doing a better job. Many of those treatments may be pre-emerge treatments before the crop is even up, and it's pretty easy for a farmer to split a field or do some strips out in a field to see if one product could improve his control across the farm.
But the thing is, like Darren mentioned, when weather changes so much from year to year, the farmer's got to weigh this out over a period of time and say, hey, is this a good investment for me every year, regardless of whether it's wet or dry, knowing that, boy, if it's dry, I gain nothing. If it's wet, I gain a whole bunch. That's what gets to be a real challenge. So we run into farmers all the time that say, well, that absolutely doesn't work. And his very next door neighbor says, well, that's the greatest thing ever. But it all depends on when they tried it, the soil type they tried it on. There are so many variables, and that's what makes farming challenging, yet kind of fun.
Well, as you're driving through the country in the summer, you probably appreciate the beauty of a field that looks just even all the way across. But you also notice where there's differences out in a field, where there's strips of this and strips of that, and many times it's farmers doing on-farm comparisons. They want to try new products and practices to see what can help them produce more food with the next crop.
Well, let's hope those strips don't have anything to do, Darren, with our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to stop it on your farm coming up later in the show.